Hello and welcome to another segment of Survive and Thrive with Sherry. As you can see, I'm not Sherry. I'm pinch hitting for her again today. And joining us on the show is Jim Langfelder. Jim is a candidate for the mayor of the city of Springfield and the current treasurer of the city of Springfield. Jim,
thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and get started here, Jim.
Sure.
Like I said, you are a candidate for the mayor of Springfield.
Right.
Well, we want our viewers to learn a little bit more about you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you were born and raised here in Springfield.
Right. Come from a large family. Grew up in a family of 13, and went to all schools here in Springfield. Worked at a lot of local businesses like Fritz's Paradise, which is no longer there, the Esquire Theater, and then Black's Downtown. And then I made my way through banking. What I did do is attend Lincoln Land Community College and then Sangamon State University and worked my way through there, and then married my wife Billy. We've been married 25 years and have 3 children. So spent 14 years in banking, and then in 2003 when the previous treasurer decided to retire, that's when I ran for city treasurer and was elected with the most votes out of any citywide elected official, and then re-elected in the same manner in 2007 and 2011. And then, of course, running for mayor this go around.
Oh, okay, all righty. You talked about your path that has led you to this particular point in your life. I asked you this question. I've asked you this once before. Why do you want to be mayor of the city of Springfield?
Well, for the simple reason I want to make Springfield the best it can be. You know, I've talked about making it the model city. I used to be in banking, and one of the jobs I had, one of the most rewarding ones, is ones we first met was community reinvestment. And I think you were at the city at that time in community development. And then Pastor Doss had the vision with King's Court Project. And this is just a sample of why it's important for me to be mayor. Is you introduced me to Pastor Doss, and we helped with that particular project. And it was a dilapidated area. Now you can drive by Cook Street across from Channel 20, and it's a gated community. And that's what I want to do for all of Springfield. You know, coming from a large family, I view Springfield as family, because if one's sick in the family, it drags the whole family down, just like our community. You know, when in banking, I can drive through the east side now or other parts of Springfield, and they're lagging behind. And what I want to do as mayor, the mayor is a very influential position, and we can make things different and different for everybody. And that's we want to be the model city. That's why I've said in many forums is I want Springfield to be the model city with regards to trust in government, economic development, CWLP, city operations, and most importantly, race relations. You know, it kind of is surprising. You know, we're the home of Abraham Lincoln, and even today, we're still talking about race relations. Springfield, Illinois, being the home of Abraham Lincoln, we should be the model with regards to race relations. They should be pointing to Springfield, Illinois, to if the community is having trouble with race relations, they should be pointing to us to resolve it. You know, here's what we've done. And so that's what I want to do as mayor, is lead the Springfield to the future to be the model city, not just with race relations, but any issue that we face, we should challenge ourselves to come together to face those challenges and be the model city for others to follow.
Okay. Now, your father served 2 terms as mayor of the city of Springfield.
Right.
And I'm sure he's given you some advice. What advice has he given you?
Well, everybody's favorite is not to run. And he said that he saw the other side of politics. What he enjoyed about being in government or politics, being an elected official, he always called it being a public servant, and that's what I do too. And that's the enjoyment, is you can help individuals. We're here to serve the public. And that's what I did in banking. It's customer service. I mean, when you take care of the customer, as long as you take care of the public, and your elections become easier. But he knew the other side of politics, where it's not as pleasant, and that's why he's kind of hesitant when I made the leap or made the decision to run for mayor. But he's very supportive. Like any child, he'll share his ideas or his thoughts and that. But he always tells me, he goes, "You never listen to me." I said, "No, I listen to you, but as a child, you know how your children are. We have we select what we want to listen to, as far as that go, or make that decision." So that's how I am in any decision that I make as mayor. What I would do is get as much information possible and then make the decision based on what's best for Springfield. I'm not going to worry about re-election. I'm not going to worry about moving up the elected ladder. I'm going to worry about what's best for Springfield. If you do that, it grows the community, and everything takes care of itself.
Okay. What do you feel is the number one issue facing the city of Springfield, and as mayor, how would you deal with it?
Well, for me, I think it's trust in light of certain incidents that happened. You know, they're talking about, well, they're looking at an inspector general with city government, and that's what I want to do is create a different culture for the city, and where people would look at us as being work hand in hand with the private sector, nonprofits, neighborhoods, and they do to some degree, but not to the level we need to be. And what I would want to do is raise the level of trust and provide that quality service to the public that they expect and that they deserve, and do what's best for Springfield. And I think that's where everything starts. You know, everybody talks about economic development, anything else. The foundation of any business or with city government is trust, or even relationships. If you don't have trust, you cannot move forward. And that's what I want to do, is make sure we have a strong foundation with regards to trust. And on that, you know, when the banks, when I became Community Reinvestment Act coordinator for the bank, that act was brought about because banks were said to be discriminating against certain areas, low and moderate income areas of the city. So they sent me in to build the level of trust for the bank, and that's what I intend to do as mayors, raise the level of trust so we can move our city forward to be the model that we want.
Okay. The issue of residency.
Right.
What's your take on that? Should you live in the city if you work for the city?
I was always a proponent of residency. I thought it was a bad initiative when they enacted the ordinance to remove that as a requirement of city employment. In the private sector, I was impacted by residency. My job was, it went from 6 positions down to 1 position. So I could have applied for it, but I'd have to go up north, and I decided not to. I reapplied for another position within the bank because I wanted to stay in Springfield. Well, you fast forward to today, city jobs are, you know, they pay good wages and they have great benefits. So the other side of it is 100% of our tax dollars, property tax dollars, now that portion has to go towards retirements and pensions. So it's for no other reason. If you just look at that, that's why we should have residency. So the individual workers, their property taxes help pay for the retirements. But I'm just a firm believer, regardless of that, is that you should live in the city of Springfield because they are great jobs. Any individual that wants to apply for the city, they can do that. I don't care if they live in California or wherever they live. We'd have a time period of 6 months where they'd be able to move into the city of Springfield. Now the other thing is, we used to have a residency rule. It was put in place in the late 70s, and we do it the same way, where individuals that live outside the city, if the city council passed the ordinance, they'd be able to remain outside, but the employees that were in the city of Springfield, once that residency ordinance was passed, then they would have to remain in the city. But any new hires in addition to that would have to be in the city of Springfield. But it does take passage of the city council. It does take a mayor that is committed, because a lot of people say they'll do it and that hasn't happened, but I will be one to push it forward.
Okay. CWLP is the crown jewel of the city of Springfield, and as mayor, what type of individual would you look to appoint to run that facility?
Well, be an individual that has the utility and the city of Springfield at heart. I mean, they have to act professionally, you know, make sure that we have a quality utility, and they have to be knowledgeable, of course. And so what I've always, I was the first one that brought it up. I intend, one of my main goals, and aside from, you know, establishing trust, is to make sure we return CWLP back to its mission of providing reliable and affordable electricity and water to the citizens of Springfield. We've gotten away from that, where we're selling power on the open market, but really CWLP came about to provide for electricity and water for the citizens of Springfield. And we used to be the lowest rates in the state. Now we're among the highest. So I'm going to do everything I can to work so we can reduce those rates and be more competitive with regards to Springfield ratepayers, but on the open market. That way we can use it as an economic engine that we once had.
Okay. When Mayor Mike Houston took office, city finances were in a shambles. He's since righted that ship. What would you do as mayor to stay on that same course, if you will?
Well, as city treasurer, I always operate my department within budget, and I would do the same thing. Actually, I've operated, let positions stay vacant so we could meet when the city was having tough financial times. So we did our fair share with regards to those tough times. It takes tough decisions. But the other side I would do is, one with the CWLP, I'd bring back the Utilities Committee, because the aldermen that make the decisions regarding city water, light, and power need as much information as possible. They need to spend more time with regards to operations of CWLP. So we'd have the Utilities Committee meeting come back where they are given in-depth reporting on the utility. The other side of it is what everybody talks about is the cash accounting. You know, if you listen to the city council, the report I give is cash accounting, because that's what the treasurer does. We take care of the bank account. We don't handle the budget part. That's handled under the mayor's office, the Office of Budget and Management. That's one of the reasons I'm running for mayor, so you would have control over the budget aspect of it. But the cash balance, just real simply, is like your checkbook, your personal checkbook. So you write your checks for the week, but you still have your automobile payment and your house payment. Well, your bank balance will show, oh, I got $300 in there, but you still have to pay your house and your car. Well, that's not your real accounting, because you have those bills to pay. So that's what they tout as the cash balance. The other side of it, what I will present on a regular basis, is the accrued accounting, and that would take into account all your bills that you have to pay. So you give an accrued report. You might have $300 in the bank, because you haven't written those checks, but what's the impact once you pay those bills? And that's what we need to show, is the accrued accounting for city water, light, and power, and the corporate fund, and that's what I would do on a regular basis. So the aldermen do receive the information, and there's no surprises at the end of the year, with any type of deficit or anything of that nature, because they would see what the actual accounting numbers would be.
Okay. Economic development is a big issue. How would you propose furthering economic development in economically depressed areas?
Well, I looked at different states and municipalities within those states. I looked at Missouri, Utah, and the Carolinas. And what caught my eye were, they call them target industry sectors. I call it target employment sectors, because we're talking about employees and jobs and trying to create jobs. And the city I'd point to is Asheville, North Carolina. And essentially, have you been there? How'd you like it?
I played baseball there years ago.
Oh,
I loved it. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Loved it. Yeah.
Well, it's a growing and thriving community.
I know, yeah.
And how they did it is just like we would do here. For instance, we'd have target employment sectors like the medical community. So what you do is that you have the hospitals, you have Springfield Clinic, and the physicians, and we would meet with them and ask them, what's impeding your growth? Are there any obstacles that you're facing that impedes you growing as a business? And then so what we try to do is remove those obstacles so they can grow. The other thing we need to identify is what businesses complement them. They have suppliers and vendors, so we should identify possible businesses that will feed into their organization so we can recruit those. Those are natural ways to grow your economy. And that's what Asheville has done. But the other piece of it that's very important is the education component. So you have an education sector. Target employment sector would be education. Same thing, what you want ultimately is a qualified workforce, educated workforce. Some individuals want to go to post-secondary education and fulfill living wage jobs with regards to that. The other side is we need to plug in the unions, learning a trade. And because some people don't want to go on to post-secondary, they just want to, after high school, get a job and start living their life that way. So that would be a key component as well, to make sure that we have people trained, a qualified workforce, so we can do attraction and as far as businesses go, so showing them that we do have a qualified workforce to take on these positions.
Okay. Fly dumping is a major problem in certain areas of the city of Springfield. How would you propose to deal with that as mayor?
Well, the one solution that's been proposed that's worked in other communities is putting it on your utility bill. And so with that, when you have an election season going on, the message gets, people talk inaccurately because, they're trying to, misrepresent the truth as far as that goes. But really what we're talking about, we're not talking about picking somebody's waste hauler. We're talking about a way to resolve the fly dumping issue. So, I use lake area disposal, and they're against it, of course, you know, because they're a private industry. They don't. Their fear is that we're going to start dictating who would be able to utilize what waste hauler, and that's not the case. All we're talking about is a way to ensure that everybody has waste hauling services. So really, it actually grow their business or has that opportunity. So that's one option. So what I would do as mayor, and I'll go into detail. I'm sure there's going to be another question, but when issues arise, what we need to do is pull in the parties that are impacted. So what I would do is pull in the waste haulers, the neighborhood groups that have been advocates for this type of initiative, and then have them say, well, here's the issue. The issue is fly dumping. You know, we have a mess. And one solution that other communities have used is putting it on their utility bill. So if there's any objection to that, we want to hear other solutions. Because what we don't want, just going back to the race relations, we've been talking about that for decades. We don't want to be talking about waste hauling for decades or fly dumping for decades. And we need to resolve that issue. So we just need to work together, just not only with fly dumping, with everything. That's how you do it. You do it collectively, bring in the parties that are impacted, come up with viable solutions, and solve the issue. And that's what I intend to do as mayor, is take it that direction.
Okay. A lot of emphasis is placed on, in the city of Springfield, on minority hiring as relates to police and fire department.
Right.
But one of the things also, too, in terms of growing the city and growing the businesses, particularly with a lot of young African-American kids that graduate from college with degrees in, you know, attorneys, accountants, those type of things, there are really no positions for them to come back into in private industry. How would you as mayor maybe encourage some of these businesses to start internship programs to offer these individuals an opportunity to come back to the community in which they live, especially if they don't want to work for the state, because naturally you'll make more money as an attorney in private industry that you would working in state government?
Well, you have to lead by example, and that goes back to my roots in banking. You know, I had done a lot of initiatives by leading by example. So first, we need to do it as a city government. You know, they've been always under the microscope with regards to minority hiring practices. So first, what I would do is make sure we put in place an anti-discriminatory process. So with regards to hiring, new hiring, and that was a similar process that we did in banking. So going back to my CRA days, what we have done back then was compare loan applications. And so if you had a non-minority loan applicant and a similar minority loan applicant that might have been denied, you compare the two to make sure that fairness was, the applications were fairly processed. Same thing that we would do in city government. I would institute this process, and what we would do is any non-minority that's going to be offered the job, and if there's a like minority applicant that's not, we'd compare the applications to make sure they were treated equally and fairly. And that would be done by a review committee, and that's how we'd reinstitute or change that particular process. Specifically with fire and police, you know, banding is how they do it now, where you have different bands, you know, 1 through 4, whatever it is. And so the intent was to improve minority hiring, but that hasn't happened. So since it hasn't happened, we should review that process. There's a disconnect there. You're not reaping the results that you should be, and it's been going on for years. So we need to make sure that we either change that process or improve the numbers somehow. You know, if it's not working, we need to look at a different review process or with regards to hiring to make sure that we are meeting the requirements that we'd like to meet. And make no mistake, what we want are qualified employees, just like anybody else, but we want fairness in hiring. That's what it comes down to. Qualified individuals and fairness in hiring. And if you do that, it's acceptable to everybody. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is with middle management with regards to the city. And what I proposed is we do an internship program, similar to what we did in banking. We had a management trainee program. We could do the same thing within the city with individuals that are interested in working at the city. We can partner with UIS, you know, and have an internship, or Robert Morris College, have an internship program with them at the city level. The other area I would do with education is partner with School District 186. It's similar to a program I did with at the bank. We did an adopt-a-school with Langfelder High School, where you would go in and educate the students on jobs available within the city of Springfield. So we'd have people from CWLP, Public Works, Fire Department, Human Resources, and we would hopefully pique their interest and show them what jobs or career opportunities there are available within city government. And then they would know what path to take to hopefully apply and obtain a position with regards to that. But by leading by example for the city of Springfield, you can branch out to other areas, because I came from banking. And what you want, we have there's a grow your own program, but the issue with that, it's a good program where you have a engineering firm that has taken in or some individual minorities and help with their hiring as far as that goes. But what we should do is do it across the board, and that's what I used to do in banking. It just wouldn't be our bank. We'd have all the banks participate. So we need all the engineering firms participate, all these businesses participating together to help achieve the goal that we want, which are making sure we have the qualified workforce and we have a diverse workforce that reflects our community.
Okay. The homeless population in Springfield, that's been an issue here in Springfield for quite some time in terms of them finding a home, and no pun intended, but for the organization or whatever. What will the Jim Langfelder administration do to address the homeless population, homelessness here in Springfield?
Well, it is it's a continuing problem that we have, and hopefully with the Salvation Army, when they open their or they're redoing their facility, which will allow for more housing or overnight sheltering for individuals. But what we need to do is identify it's a problem that hasn't gone away, and I'm not sure if it'll ever go away. But what we need to do is make sure that people have shelter, especially in the wintertime. The city has helped with the overflow shelter. They help fund that. And what we should do is make sure that people do have opportunities throughout the year, just not during the winter months, but all the months. And we have some great shelters. You have Helping Hands, you have Contact Ministries, which when my dad was mayor, he helped get that built. That was the first real initiative for a homeless shelter that was built for families. And then, but you have Inner City Missions, you have Salvation Army. So we do have great groups offering those services. One thing I will be doing is having a housing council, and that would be one aspect of it, where you bring all the groups that are working towards housing together, and homelessness would be a portion of that, but you bring them together and work together to resolve the problem. Because when you apply for grants at the federal level, what they want to make sure is that everybody's working together. Instead of people applying for the grants individually, they want to make sure that you're, as a collective body or as a collective city, that you're applying the grants, and then you have some leverage that you're using, and it's just not grant dollars trying to address the problem. And that's how the approach I would take, is bringing groups together so we can all work together to resolve the issue as best and as efficiently as we can.
Okay. The issue of racial profiling has been something that's come up here in Springfield, and perceived racial profiling. And the city has also entered into an agreement, I believe, to actually supply the police officers with body cameras.
Right.
What's your feeling on body cameras and the whole issue of racial profiling?
Well, with the one thing on racial profiling, usually there's arguments whether, go back to hiring, with this election, you've seen that where the mayor had said, well, we've hired all these minorities, I'm doing a great job, but there's others said, no, you're not doing enough. Well, if there's a perception, then that, for me, that's reality. We need to change that perception, prove it wrong, or whatever the case may be. So if there's a perception of racial profiling, we need to change that perception if it's not a reality. And so the body cameras, I'm in favor of that. It not only protects, it gives a hopefully as accurate picture as you can see, visually, but also, it helps the police officer and the public. And same, I'd be in favor of getting cameras on all the police cars as well. So you have that in place. But what I'm a firm believer of is community policing, a community policing philosophy, not just a program, because programs, a lot of police departments might use it as a program, and then when funding gets cut, they cut it out. Community policing goes back to building the level of trust. It's about relationships with our residents. And that's the police, they're here to protect and serve, just like anybody in city government or any government, we're here to serve the public. But the police can't do it alone. We have to bring the community together to resolve the tough issues that we face. We've seen what's happened in Ferguson, and the problem is when something happens at a police department, it doesn't matter where that police department is with regards to racism or something of that nature. It's like a magnet where it impacts all police forces across the nation. And so what we need to do is become the model city with regards to trust in your government. And that's what I want to do is create a community policing philosophy with the police department. So we've taken some small steps with working with the community, but we just need to raise that level because we can resolve it. But the community has to come together, work together hand in hand with the police department so we can make sure that the police force has the initiatives that they can protect and serve all of us.
Okay. Recently, the city of Peoria entered into an agreement with Louisville Slugger to build a sports complex there, which actually, in my opinion, will be an economic boom for them because I've, being in athletics and, knowing about the impact you can have on the economy in terms of, you have little kids coming in, the parents bringing them in, the hotels, food, gas. What would you think it would take to get a facility such as that in this city of Springfield? And as mayor, how would you lead the charge, if you will, to see something
with
like
Louisville, they probably went to Peoria because they have a minor league team too. That probably played into it, which would have been nice. And Langfelder Robin Roberts Stadium is a nice stadium. Unfortunately, the infrastructure around there, it's on 11th Street. I mean, it's tough to get to. So if anything would ever happen, it'd have to be a private-public partnership as far as if you're looking at a sports complex for a minor league or anything of that nature. But right now, we have baseball there, which is good. But if you want to improve it, it had to be off the interstate. That's what they want to build that. But what we want are activities for the youth. And that's what you want, because you don't have to go to Peoria. You can go to Bloomington or maybe Champaign. They have nice sports complexes. And we have a nice one for softball out at UIS. My daughters played there. And that's a nice sports complex. But as far as for baseball, there's not one. We have one for soccer. But what I would do is work with the sports community here in Springfield. Almost, it goes back to that target employment sector. Well, you can have a target recreation sector where you're trying to have all the entities that have an interest in improving recreational activities. So it include the Park District, of course, but you include SASA, which is a soccer group, and you include the softball group out at Lincoln Land and all the other ones, and see what it would take to improve, or if we want to have a new facility, what can we do to make that happen? And I know there's other entities that have tried to develop just south of Southern View. And what we need to do is identify the obstacles for having that happen, and can we actually make it happen? But the government can't do it all. It had to, my estimation, would be a private-public partnership to make anything of that nature go. But what's nice is we have the university, UIS, and they have a baseball team now. And I know that if you've driven out there, where they have their field, when they first started, they just had a field out there and then a fence. Now they have some stands, so they're doing a nice job bringing it along, and hopefully the community supports what we have, but also try to build upon that and make it attractive for others, like you had stated. And then you can start bringing in other industries or entities that have an interest to grow that particular area.
If elected mayor, what type of management team would you put in place to run the city?
Well, it'd be, as far as what I would do as far as directors go, first and foremost, I'd meet with all the directors. And I do meet with employees as well. That's what I did as city treasurer. I came in and met with the employees, asked them, how would they like to change things, if they could change it, what their ambitions were. But on the director level, of course, they've made decisions along the way. And so, we'd have a discussion on the direction and, and make a determination as far as what my priorities would be and what you want as far as on the management level, as far as directors, police chief, fire chief. They would have to share the same philosophy that I have, which is change the culture within city government. As far as having quality service, we're here to serve the public. How can we best serve the citizens of Springfield? So you have to have that buy-in, at 110%. And so that's the philosophy I brought into the treasurer's office, and that's what I would do citywide.
Okay. Many developers say Springfield is not a business-friendly community.
Right.
I know one guy here in town who does senior housing and has done about 54 projects all throughout the state, but not one in Springfield. And he says he doesn't want to do one here because Springfield's not business-friendly. What would you do to change that perception?
Well, first talk to that individual and see what the problem is. And it goes back, I know I'm going back to that target employment sector, but that's what you're doing is, are there any hindrances from the government standpoint? Are we, too bureaucratic? What's the problem? Too many regulations or inspections a problem? But one thing I would introduce for downtown specifically, and it goes back to similar, how would you develop other areas? Well, downtown has a lot of older buildings. And what other communities have had is, and what I would introduce is an adaptive reuse ordinance. And what we do is take a look at the ordinance or the requirements to rehabilitate a building. And what we want to do is make sure that it's economically feasible for individuals to do it. Because right now, from what I've heard, it's too much, it can be too cumbersome to remodel those buildings, too costly. And you can build brand new and go that direction. So to restore downtown, especially with the historic structures, I would introduce an adaptive reuse ordinance that would take a look at making sure that we do meet the safety guidelines and health guidelines, of course, but we want to eliminate any bureaucracy or any unneeded costs that really would prohibit a building becoming revitalized and being put back on the tax rolls.
Okay. Governor Rauner has proposed this work-free zone, which was just recently declared illegal by Attorney General Lisa Madigan. What was your take on work zones in terms of, would you for it or against it? What was your take on that?
Well, I'm against work-free zones. To me, I saw it as a way to reduce salaries for working families, and so for that reason alone, I'm against it. The real problem is, how do we grow our economy and the state's financial mess? If the state wasn't in the financial mess they were, a lot of it was brought on by government, by bad decisions as far as, not funding pensions fully and things of that nature, spending it beyond your means. That's been the problem. So what we need to do is grow our economy. And that's what I intend to do for Springfield, is grow our economy, operate city government like I've done in the city treasurer's office, making sure you live within your means and do serve the public as best as possible, make those wise choices, and that way we can all grow together.
I had an opportunity in the past to interview Mayor Francis Slay, who's the mayor of the city of St. Louis.
Okay.
And one of the things that he was real proud of is their permitting process, in terms of it only taking one day to get a building permit issued. What's your feeling on that, and in terms of it being a tool to use in terms of being able to spur economic development?
Well, it depends on how many permits, I'm sure,
Yeah.
And so
bigger city. Yeah.
Right. And so what you want to make sure of is that you want the permit process is there to make sure that you have healthy and safe structures. So as long as you can make sure that's the case, and not going to the nth degree, but you just, as long as it is healthy and safe, that's, for me, that's how it boilerplates down with regards to the permitting. So it probably depends on the structure, how far along the plans are, and how how involved they are as far as that goes. But that's something we take a look at. But I'd have to rely on the experts to a certain degree. But the bottom line is, you want to make sure that the permitting, you want to make sure that the structures meets all the requirements as far as setbacks and all that. But that's safe and a safe environment and healthy environment before you issue a permit, of course.
Okay. Endorsements. How important are endorsements, and what endorsements have you received so far?
Well, endorsements, I think they're important if you have groups that are for you, because what you're looking at, or if they can influence a lot of people. Because bottom line, when it comes to election time or the election day, you want as many votes as possible. And I've gotten calls from the reporters, and they say, "Oh, you were endorsed by a certain union," and they say, "What's that mean?" I say, "Well, more people for Jim Langfelder." And so that's what it means is, for me, I had a lot of organizations support me. So for myself, I prefer groups doing it because it shows a diverse population coming in for me, as opposed to one individual saying they're for me. I think for myself, I like diversity as far as that goes, where you can broaden. It doesn't matter if it's an independent, a Democrat, Republican. We have broad-based support, and that reflects how we approach campaigning. My campaign, how I've run it is, we go door to door. We rely heavily on meeting people, because that's what the election's all about, is meeting as many people as you can, finding out what the pulse of the community is. And I go to all the doors, as far as we don't, if they're registered or non-registered, we go to all the doors. And, because even the non-registered voter, they're going to go to work, and, they have issues, and they're going to talk about what's important to them. And so that's a way to help market our campaign as far as that goes. But I just feel it's, for endorsements, it's better to have a broad base as opposed to just one or two individuals as far as that goes.
Okay. If elected, would you seek another term? I know that was one of the things that Mike Houston said he was not going to seek another term.
I'll run again.
Okay.
Well, that's it's unfortunate, but really that kept coming up. And when I was on door to door, people generally liked the job he did, but a lot of them just said, well, he said he'd only run one time. And so that did come into play to a degree. But no, I'd run for re-election, but of course it's in the voters' hands. That's I think it's a reflection on, not necessarily in the mayor's case, because that's I think hampered it. So hopefully he doesn't judge his term based on not being re-elected, because people I think they were satisfied with what he did, but they were really hung up. A lot of people were hung up on that he said he'd only run one term. For myself, when I ran in 2003, I received the most votes out of any citywide elected official. I ran opposed the next two terms, and I think the public should always have a choice, but I think it's more of the reflection of the service I provided, that I did not have any opposition, because I think we just did a great job within City Treasurer's office, and we ran it as a customer-friendly, serving the public, that philosophy. And I think that's the type of mayor I will be as far as that goes, and that will transcend into the following elections. And as long as you can make that happen, then you'll be successful.
Okay. How would you have handled the Shredgate issue had you been mayor?
Well, it's an unfortunate situation. And the other thing is, it impacts all the departments within the city. Because when people, if something happens in any piece of government, if it's county government or state, federal, or city, people see it as a city. They don't, I know it happened at the police department, but they see it as the city. And so for my office, what we've done is always follow the Secretary of State standards for records retention. So it should never have happened if you would have done that. What we do is we send a list of records that we are going to put in storage, and then they'll send us notification back, and they'll give us a report that shows when the records can be disposed of. So, we put it on the box when they can be disposed of. We put them in the archives, and when the date expires, then you can dispose of those records. So I would make sure that all the departments within city government follow that same process with regards to Secretary of State records retention.
Now, that was a negotiated thing with the union, though, I believe, though, wasn't it, in terms of...
Records retention shouldn't be negotiated.
Okay.
I wouldn't think.
Okay. No,
that's my legal... I'm not an attorney, but that's my legal opinion.
I think that was the
but
thing
yeah,
they were talking about.
Well, it was a memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
I think that was between the union and management. And so that's the other area, memorandums of understanding. I think for myself, any memorandums of understanding regarding union contracts should go before the city council. Because what you don't want happening is the mayor making a decision that can impact operations, or in this case, financial matters. And so you want to make sure it goes back to being open with the city council. And that's another reason, I think I'm the best individual, because I have an open relationship with the public, with media, but also with the city council. And I'll work well with the city council and making sure they have as much information as possible so they can make the best decisions possible for the city.
Okay. There's been some talk about an ordinance for food vendors. The individuals that have the trucks that they bring in and out or whatever. I guess I think Alderman Job is going to be proposing some sort of ordinance dealing with those individuals in terms of the competition that they have with the brick and mortar places.
Right.
What's your opinion on these individuals that have these particular type businesses in terms of being close to a brick and mortar facility?
Well, I think they serve their purpose in certain areas, but I wouldn't be in favor of them being downtown near restaurants, things of that nature. Like you said, you have individuals that pay property taxes, have employees, and been there. You know, they've put a lot of time and money and investment into their buildings, and then you can have a business just roll right up and just be there for a short period of time and take off and move to another area. And I'm just not a firm believer in. I think there has to be some restrictions, but for instance, they can come downtown on Sundays when a lot of the restaurants are closed, and so that's what you'd have to take a look at. Or there's certain areas of employment where you might only have 30 minutes to go get something to eat, or there's nothing around there that they can choose from in a certain geographic area. So those are logical places that they would need. I know for myself, I went to Illinois State Museum, and there's a reception there, and they had one of the chili trucks pull right up there, which was nice. I mean, and that was something that they provided to people that were attending the open house. And so there's a need for the food vendors. It's a matter of going back to, like I said, any issue. What we need to do is figure out a way that you can have it work hand in hand, and that's the best approach to take.
Okay. This is a nonpartisan election, but your opponent has received the endorsement of the Republican Party, and you've received the endorsement of the Democratic Party. How would you try to appeal to those Republican individuals, since this is a nonpartisan election, to vote for you?
Well, I'm here to serve everyone in Springfield as far as that goes. I don't look at Republican, Democrat, or Independent. I look at it, I use my private sector experience, and that's what I brought to the Treasurer's office, the same manner, is provide that same quality of service. And that's how people have judged me in the past and will continue to, because we have a broad base of support. I have Republicans that support us, Democrats, Independents, and so that's been one of the joys with the mayoral campaign, is to see the diversity within my base, as far as not only volunteers, but of course with the voting base as well. So that will continue on. As mayor, I plan to do the same thing. Is just you stay humble is what you do. I'm going to be the same person going into office as I am coming out of office, and that's what it's about. Unfortunately, there's times where people they get a position or get elected to a certain position, and then they forget where they came from. I mean, you have to stay humble. You're here to serve the public. We're not better than anybody else. So that's what it's about. Is we're here to provide services to the public to the best of our ability, and that's what we intend to do.
Okay. A couple more questions, Jim.
Sure.
Are you in favor of more TIFs in the city of Springfield?
Well, one of my economic development initiatives, and you can go to the webpage, www.langfelder2015.com, and it goes into detail about my economic development plan, but also my plan for the utility and making sure its returns to be trusted and accountable, financial stability, as well as looking towards the future. But with regards to TIF, one of the things I have proposed under my economic development plan is to have a community development finance commission that would work with the Office of Economic Development. Right now, with all the city committees and commissions, we don't have anything that goes hand in hand with economic development. I'm going to put that as a pinnacle for city government. We need to be more focused, more proactive with regards to economic efforts. And what I want is a broad-based approach to economic development. So the commission, what that would be made of would be the community, as far as realtors, developers, bankers. School District 186 should have a seat at the table, because one of their initiatives will be prioritizing TIF projects and TIF areas. Right now, how TIF areas and TIF projects work, the mayor pretty much and Office of Economic Development bring the projects to the city council, and that will continue, but my approach will be different. Instead of the mayor dictating, or kind of filtering what goes to the council, I'm going to use the commission, which is a broad-based community group, take a look at opportunities with regards to TIF and make recommendations in conjunction with the Office of Economic Development, and those are the projects we'll take to the City Council. So it's more of a bottoms-up approach because, you know, they, especially with 186, they have the biggest time invested. You know, they want the TIFs to be successful because the importance of the TIF is for grow a dilapidated area, but the two functions are to create jobs and increase property taxes. So, you know, the school district, you know, they want that to happen because they're going to be the beneficiaries of it, and so they should be at the table. Developers, you know, bankers, you know, they're, you know, invested in that type of growth, as well as the city should. But instead of the city directing it, we're going to have the commission work with the Office of Economic Development to determine the prioritization of TIF projects and TIF areas.
Okay. And my last question, you have anything else that you'd like to add or say to the voters?
Well, hopefully they go out and vote. That's the important thing. Tell your friends and family. April 7th. And what's interesting about that is on Sunday is Easter Sunday before the election. So if you're planning a trip that week after Easter, be sure you vote early. You can go and vote now. And so take the time to vote. Tell your friends and family to vote. Preferably for me, Jim Langfelder, best for Springfield, Mayor 2015. But if not, please do your due diligence and vote because it is for the betterment of our community.
Jim,
hey, thanks Mike.
For coming
yeah, it's
on.
been fun. Well, I appreciate the
Make
invite.
sure you get out and vote on April the 7th. I'm Mike Pittman, sign off. Vote early and vote often. Thanks for watching. Thank you.